You wake before the sun rises, as you always have, as your parents did before you, as their parents did before them. Your feet touch the wooden floor that creaks softly, a familiar music that echoes through the boards worn by time and the steps of generations. The morning air enters through the half-open window, carrying the humid scent of earth that drank the night's dew, mixed with the sweet aroma of wildflowers that grow around your house. You dress slowly, each movement deliberate and conscious. Your clothes carry the perfume of herbs that your grandmother used to keep among the folds. Lavender, rosemary, a touch of mint that still persists, even after all these years. As you pull on your worn boots, you feel the soft leather that has molded perfectly to the shape of your feet, like a second skin that connects you directly to the earth you walk upon. The front door opens with a low, familiar groan. Outside, the world is still painted in shades of blue-gray, that magical hour when night hasn't completely bid farewell to day. You step onto the wooden porch, and its boards whisper under your weight. The cool air caresses your face, bringing with it stories of the night, the perfume of flowers that open only in darkness, the humidity that rose from the fields, the almost imperceptible trail of animals that passed by while you slept. Your feet find the stone path leading to the well, each stone polished by decades of footsteps. You know every irregularity, every depression where rain collects, every protrusion that shines brighter than the others when morning light finally arrives. You don't need to look where you step. Your body knows this route like it knows your own heartbeat. The well rises before you, like a silent monument to human persistence. Its dark stones are moist with condensation, and small drops slowly slide down the cracks between them. You turn the iron handle, and the rhythmic creaking echoes through the quiet morning air. The bucket descends slowly, and you hear the soft echo when it touches the water surface below, a sound that has always seemed like a greeting exchanged between you and the earth. When you pull the bucket back up, the cold water splashes on your hands. You bring it to your face and feel the icy shock against your skin, an awakening that goes beyond the physical. It's as if the water carried with it all the history of rain that fell on this land, all the patience of clouds that waited for the right moment to dissolve, all the wisdom of roots that knew where to search. You drink slowly, feeling the water descend down your throat, cold and pure. There's a mineral taste you recognize, the taste of the earth itself, filtered through layers of stone and sand, purified by time and patience. It's the same taste your mother described when she told stories about her first years here, the same that your grandmother said made her feel connected to all who came before. The horizon begins to lighten almost imperceptibly. You stand there, beside the well, watching how light is born slowly, as if the sky itself were learning to breathe. There's something deeply comforting in this daily repetition. The same ritual, the same water, the same earth under your feet. You understand that this constancy isn't monotony. It's the foundation upon which all change can happen safely. Your still wet hands touch the stone edge of the well, and you feel the rough texture that has caressed the palms of so many other people. Each mark on the stone tells a story. The wear caused by the rope that lowers the bucket every day, the stains left by wet hands that leaned there to rest, the small chips that broke off when someone years ago dropped a tool. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the sounds beginning to wake around you. The low crow of a rooster in the distance, the rustling of leaves when a gentle breeze passes through the fields, the almost imperceptible noise of small animals moving through the grass. Each sound is a note in a symphony you know by heart, a music that plays every morning without ever repeating exactly the same. When you open your eyes again, the first golden strip of light touches the tops of the most distant trees. It's time to begin the day, but you feel no rush. Here you've learned that time has its own wisdom, that things happen when they should happen, that forcing the natural rhythm of things is to fight against a current that will always be stronger than you. You pick up the full bucket and return home along the same stone path, but now your steps seem different, heavier with the water you carry, more deliberate with the awareness of beginning another day. The earth under your feet seems to whisper silent approval, as if recognizing in you someone who understands the importance of small gestures, of rituals that connect a person to the place where they live. Back at the house, you place the bucket on the kitchen counter and feel the solid weight of water transfer to the wood. The counter is a massive block that your grandfather carved by hand, And even today you can see the chisel marks on the edges, small undulations that your fingers know by heart. The wood has darkened over the years, absorbing oil from the hands that worked on it, water splashes, fruit juices, creating a rich patina that no varnish could imitate. You light the fire in the wood stove with automatic but conscious gestures. First the crumpled paper, then the thin twigs that crackled when you collected them yesterday, finally the larger pieces of dry wood that your family cut and stacked during autumn. There's an art to building fire, not too fast, or the wood consumes itself without heating properly. Not too slow, or the flame dies before catching. You learned this balance by watching your mother, who learned by watching hers, in an unbroken chain of knowledge passed from hand to hand. The first flame timidly licks the twigs, then grows with confidence. You adjust the air intake and hear the low breath of fire establishing itself, a sound that has always seemed like a deep, satisfied breathing. Heat begins to spread through the kitchen, warming first your hands, then your face, then the entire environment with that enveloping sensation that only wood fire can create. While waiting for the kettle to heat, you prepare bread dough. Your hands know the proportions without needing to measure. A handful of flour, another handful, another. Salt in the right amount, warm water that you test with your little finger, the pinch of yeast that your neighbor shares with you every week, just as you share your goat's milk with her. There's no accounting in these small trades. There's only the certainty that caring for each other is caring for yourself. Your hands work the dough with rhythmic movements, pressing, folding, pressing again. The texture changes under your palms, first sticky and irregular, then smoother, more elastic, until it finally becomes silky and soft. You feel when it's ready, not through any timer, but through your hands that have learned to read the signs the dough gives. It's a silent dialogue between you and the food you're creating. The bread goes into the oven still warm from the night before, and you adjust the fire to maintain the right temperature. There's a specific moment when you know you can lower the flame, when the smell of raw dough transforms into the golden aroma of baking bread. It's a perfume that takes over the entire house, announcing that another day has begun the right way, with the care and patience that life deserves. While the bread bakes, you milk the goats. They recognize you by the sound of your footsteps in the yard and begin to stir before you even appear. Luna, the oldest, pushes the others to get close to you first. Your hands caress the soft fur of her neck while you lead her to the milking spot. There's mutual trust in this ritual. She knows you'll be gentle, you know she'll stay quiet. The milk comes out warm and foamy, creating soft music against the metal bucket walls. You feel the warmth through the metal and appreciate the sweet, clean smell of fresh milk. There's something deeply satisfying about drawing sustenance directly from the source, about knowing each animal that produces the food that will reach your table. You know that Luna prefers clover from the North Field, that Estrella likes being scratched behind her ears, that Lua Nova is still learning to trust human hands. When you finish milking, you take the bucket to the kitchen and strain the milk through a clean cloth. Part goes to your family, part will be transformed into cheese, part will be shared with neighbors. Your hands know each process, how to heat milk to the right temperature for rennet, how to shape cheese, how to hang it to dry in a place where air circulates but sun doesn't hit directly. The bread already perfumes the entire house when you take it from the oven. The crust is golden and crispy, and when you tap lightly on the bottom, it resonates with that hollow sound indicating it's baked just right. You place it on the wooden rack to cool and resist the temptation to cut it immediately. Bread needs to rest. Let the internal steam redistribute. Allow the texture to settle itself. Your hands are tired in a good way, that tiredness that comes from work well done. There's flour under your nails, small cuts from the day's tasks, calluses in places where tools rest. But these are hands that know how to create, that know the right weight of things, the ideal temperature, the exact moment. These are hands that carry the wisdom of generations of people who understood that work can be a prayer, that care is a form of love. You wash your hands in the basin of warm water, feeling the flour dissolve between your fingers. The water becomes cloudy, and you pour it later on the yard plants. Nothing is wasted here. Everything finds its place in the great wheel that connects the work of your hands with the generosity of the earth. The sun has already risen completely when you finally sit down to take the first sip of morning coffee. The liquid is strong and hot, warming you from within, while you observe through the window the field awakening to another day. Your hands wrap around the ceramic mug, absorbing the heat, and you feel deep satisfaction knowing you began the day the right way, with patience, with care, with hands immersed in work that sustains life. After coffee, you go out to the yard and sit on the wooden bench your father built under the old pear tree. This is where you come when you need to hear what the world has to say, when you need to remember that silence isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of all the small sounds that normally go unnoticed. The first sound you identify is your own breathing, slow, deep, synchronized with the natural rhythm of your resting body. Then comes the breathing of the earth around you, the almost imperceptible rustling of pear tree leaves above you, moving with a breeze so light you don't feel it on your skin, but which the leaves capture and translate into green whispers. There's the sound of water moving, not a river or stream, but water silently flowing through plant roots, rising through stems, spreading through leaves in a slow, constant movement you don't see, but somehow can hear. It's a sound that exists on the border between real and imagined, like the low pulsing of sap that keeps everything alive. A rooster crows in the distance, and you can identify by the timbre that it's Mr. Antonio's rooster, who lives 3 houses down. Then, as if it were a deliberate echo, Mrs. Maria's rooster responds, and then another house's, and another, until an entire conversation establishes itself across the valley. You smile because you understand you're hearing neighbors greeting each other through their animals, a way of saying, "I'm here, everything's fine, how are you?" without needing human words. The wind changes direction and brings new sounds. You hear the distant tinkling of goat bells grazing in the nearby field, irregular music accompanying the animals' movements, faster when they move looking for the best tufts of grass, slower when they stop to ruminate. It's music that tells the story of how they spend their day, and you can guess if they found a particularly tasty place to graze by the calmer rhythm of the bells. There's also the sound of birds, but not as an indistinct mass of chirping. Your ears, trained by years of attention, can separate each voice. The great kiskadee that announces its name with pride, the thrush that improvises complex melodies, the sparrows that converse in groups like neighbors in a square, the rufous hornero that works singing on its clay house. Each has its sound personality, its unique way of occupying the morning's acoustic space. You close your eyes and concentrate even more. Now you can hear insect sounds, not just generic buzzing, but different notes. The bee passing loaded with pollen, lower and heavier than one flying empty. Crickets still insisting on singing even with the sun already high. The almost inaudible hum of small insects working on nearby flowers. From the house comes the sound of wood crackling in the stove, a rhythmic noise indicating the fire is behaving well, burning steadily without needing immediate attention. You also hear your own house breathing, wooden boards expanding with morning sun heat, making small pops that sound like a tongue clicking with satisfaction. A car passes on the dirt road beyond the fields, and the sound reaches you muffled by distance and filtered through trees. It's not an intrusive sound. It integrates naturally into the morning symphony like another instrument. You feel no irritation or urgency when you hear this sound, just awareness that a world exists beyond yours, but your choice was to stay here, in this place where time has another rhythm. There's the sound of water being poured. Someone is watering plants or washing something. By the echo you deduce it's Mrs. Rosa who always does house cleaning at this time. It's comforting to know that each person around you is following their own morning ritual, creating together a collective routine without ever having met to plan it. You also hear sounds coming from inside your own body, heart beating calmly, air entering and leaving lungs, the almost imperceptible noise of digestion processing breakfast. There's something deeply tranquilizing in perceiving that your body knows exactly what to do, that it functions with its own wisdom that doesn't depend on your conscious will. A child calls for someone in the distance, and the voice is immediately answered by an adult voice, reassuring. You don't understand the words, but you understand the meaning perfectly. "I'm here, everything's fine, you're not alone." It's one of the most beautiful musics that exist. Human voice responding to human voice, creating a safety net made only of sound. The silence you hear isn't empty. It's full of life moving, of people caring for each other, of animals following their instincts, of plants growing, of water running, of wind carrying messages from one place to another. It's active, dynamic silence that tells stories for those who know how to listen. You open your eyes slowly, as if emerging from a deep dive. The visual world reorganizes around you, but you continue listening with the same attention, knowing that this ability to hear the world with care is one of the most important wisdoms you've developed. In a world that constantly shouts, you learned to hear whispers and discovered they carry the most important messages. You rise from the bench and walk to the garden behind the house. It's a piece of land you know inch by inch, where each furrow was opened by your own hands, where each seed was planted with the hope of someone who understands that planting is always an act of faith in the future. The soil is dark and moist from yesterday afternoon's watering, exhaling that rich perfume of living earth that has always seemed the best of perfumes to you. You kneel beside the beds and your hands touch the earth like someone greeting an old friend. The texture is perfect, neither too dry nor too moist, loose enough for roots to breathe, firm enough to support plants. This earth wasn't like this when you arrived. It transformed gradually, year after year, through your care and patience. You remember when you began, how the earth was hard and resentful, resisting your first efforts. But you didn't give up. You brought goat manure, dry leaves from the nearby forest, ashes from the wood stove. You dug, mixed, watered, waited. You talked to the earth like you talked to the goats, explaining what you intended, asking permission, offering care in exchange for generosity. Today, you harvest the first tomatoes of the season. They're red and firm, still warm from the morning sun. When you detach them from the plant, you feel the intense perfume released from the stem, a green, vigorous smell that sticks to your hands and which you bring to your nostrils with pleasure. These are tomatoes that know their history from seed, that grew drinking water you drew from the well, eating earth you prepared with love. You continue through the beds, checking each plant. The lettuce is growing well, its light green leaves open like small fans. You remove some weeds that insist on growing among them, not with irritation, but with understanding that they also want to live. They just chose the wrong place. You place them on the compost pile, where they'll transform into food for the next plants. The squash is spreading through the beds with characteristic exuberance. You gently guide the stems so they don't invade other spaces, creating small paths between plants. The large yellow flowers attract bees, which work with total concentration, their little legs loaded with pollen. You stop to observe them, admiring how they know exactly what to do, how they transform nectar into honey through an alchemy humanity still can't replicate. In the herb bed, you harvest what you need for lunch. Basil that perfumes the air just by being touched, rosemary that releases its resinous aroma when you rub the leaves between your fingers, parsley that grew so dense it looks like a small green lawn. Each herb has its personality, basil delicate and generous, rosemary resistant and persistent, parsley humble but indispensable. You notice the peppers need more support, the seedlings are growing, and fruit weight could break the branches. You fetch small bamboo stakes you cut from the grove behind the house and carefully bury them beside each plant, tying branches with strips of old fabric. It's delicate work, requiring attention not to hurt the plants, but which you do with the patience of someone who understands that caring takes time. The carrots are still small seedlings, but already show their characteristic feathery leaves. You thin the planting, removing some seedlings to give space for others to grow. It's always difficult to decide which to remove. All seem equally deserving of a chance. But you learned that sometimes loving means making difficult choices, that giving space for some to grow well is better than letting all compete for insufficient resources. In the bean bed, you observe how plants begin climbing the poles you installed to support them. There's something touching about seeing how they instinctively know what to do, how their tendrils search and find support, how they wrap with delicacy but firmness. It's a lesson about asking for help, not with shame, but naturally, understanding that growing sometimes requires support. You check the beds where you planted corn seeds last week. They haven't sprouted yet, but you know they're down there, absorbing water, swelling, preparing to break the surface. There's something deeply hopeful about planting seeds. You can't see them working, but you trust they're doing what they know how to do, that soon they'll give signs of life. The compost in the garden corner is hot and active. You stir the material with a fork, feeling heat released from decomposition. It's fascinating to think that vegetable peels, dry leaves, food scraps are transforming into rich, nutritious earth. It's a perfect cycle. Nothing is lost, everything transforms. Death of one thing feeds life of another. You water the beds with warm water from the bucket you left in the sun. Plants seem to sigh with satisfaction when water touches their roots. You water slowly, allowing earth to absorb water well, avoiding it running off to the paths. It's a meditative ritual that gives you time to observe each plant individually, to notice small changes, to celebrate small growth. When you finish garden work, your hands are dirty with earth and your nails have that dark mark identifying those who work with plants. You don't hurry to wash them. There's something comforting about carrying a little of the garden in your hands, about feeling the texture of dry earth mixing with skin sweat. It's like carrying with you a physical memory of time well spent, care offered, life protected and nourished. You return to the house with arms full of gifts the garden offered this morning. In the kitchen, you arrange tomatoes, herbs and first peppers on the wooden counter, and for a moment you just observe the vibrant colors against the dark wood surface. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing the result of your work transformed into food, knowing that what your hands planted will now nourish your body. But you know today's abundance needs to be preserved for days of scarcity. This is how your mother taught you, how her mother learned before, that being wise means thinking beyond the present moment, understanding that seasons alternate and each brings its own challenges and gifts. You open the cupboard where you keep preserving jars, containers you collected over the years, some inherited, others traded with neighbors, all carrying stories of preserved foods and planned care. You choose the ripest tomatoes and begin preparing them for sauce that will last until winter. First, boiling water that softens the skin, then cold bath that stops cooking. Your hands work with agility developed through practice, removing skins that come off easily, cutting pulp into uniform pieces. The perfume of fresh tomatoes takes over the kitchen, mixing with steam rising from the pot. You add fresh herbs from the garden, basil that wilts in your hands releasing its sweet aroma, oregano that spreads its intense perfume, a pinch of rosemary that adds depth to the sauce. You don't follow written recipes. Your hands know proportions through flavor memory, through sauces your mother made, through tradition passed from generation to generation, through palate and intuition. The sauce cooks slowly, bubbling softly while you stir occasionally with the wooden spoon your grandmother used for the same task. There's something meditative about this process, the slow time of cooking, perfume gradually intensifying, almost alchemical transformation that turns fresh tomatoes into something that can last months without losing flavor. While the sauce cooks, you prepare other foods to preserve. Peppers will be cut into slices and sun-dried, hung on strings that will later stay in the pantry, like colorful necklaces of preserved flavor. You cut each pepper into uniform strips, removing seeds you'll save to plant next season. Nothing is wasted. Seeds join others you collect throughout the year, small treasures carrying potential for future harvests. There are herbs that will be dried and stored in small jars. You make small bundles, tying them with twine and hanging them on the kitchen beam where air circulates well, but sun doesn't hit directly. In a few days they'll be crispy and ready to be stripped and stored. Each jar will have a label with herb name and date, written in your careful handwriting, small flavor files that will cross seasons. You remember last autumn when you spent days preparing preserves for winter, pickled cucumbers that became crispy and tasty, fig jam that the yard tree produced abundantly, sun-dried tomatoes that now, months later, still carry concentrated summer flavor. Each jar in the pantry tells a story of preserved abundance, planned work, care for the future. Now you open some of those jars from previous times. Fig jam has a translucent amber color that shines when you hold it against light. The flavor is intense and sweet, carrying all memory of ripe figs you picked directly from the tree. It's as if you could taste the sun of those days, the care of those hands, the patience of that time. The sun-dried tomatoes are dark and wrinkled, but when you put them in your mouth, they explode with concentrated flavor. It's the entire summer preserved in each piece, the heat of sun that dried them, salt that helped preservation, time that transformed fresh fruits into small flavor jewels. You use some to season the sauce you're cooking, creating flavor layers that complement each other. The sauce is ready when it has the consistency you recognize by spoon movement in the pot. You pour it still hot into sterilized jars, closing them immediately to create vacuum that will preserve them. There's a satisfying sound when lids seal, a small pop confirming the process worked, that this flavor will be preserved for when you need it. You label each jar carefully. Tomato sauce, March 2025. Months from now, when you open one of these jars on a cold winter afternoon, you'll remember this day. Morning sun, fresh herb perfume, satisfaction of transforming abundance into security. It will be like a letter you wrote to your future self, a message of care sent through time. In the pantry, you organize new jars beside old ones, creating an edible archive of past seasons. Each shelf tells a different story. Summer in jams and sauces, autumn in vegetable preserves, winter in stored flour and grains, spring in first delicate preserves. It's a flavor library you consult according to need and desire. There's something deeply comforting about knowing you have reserves, that you worked when there was abundance to have security when there was scarcity. It's not accumulation from fear, but provision from wisdom. Understanding that nature has cycles and working with these cycles instead of against them is one of the oldest and most effective ways to live well. You close the pantry door and return to the kitchen, where tomato sauce perfume still lingers. Your hands wash utensils with warm water, and you feel satisfaction of someone who completed an important task. It wasn't just food you preserved today. It was time, it was care, it was wisdom of thinking beyond the immediate present. At the end of the afternoon, you carry a basket with some of the sauce jars you made in the morning and part of the fresh vegetables from the garden. It's time to make visits that maintain the invisible web connecting your small community, not formal or ceremonious visits, but simple encounters that happen when you have something to share and when you know that sharing is one of the purest forms of loving. Your first stop is at Mrs. Antonia's house, who lives 2 houses down. She's in the yard hanging clothes on the line, and her experienced hands fold each piece carefully before hanging it. When she sees you coming, her face lights up with that smile that speaks of years of friendship, consolidated in small daily gestures. "I brought tomato sauce," you say, offering one of the still warm jars, "and some peppers that turned out too beautiful to keep just for myself." Mrs. Antonia accepts with both hands, like someone receiving a precious gift, and you know she understands the real value of what's being offered. Not just food, but time, care, thought. "Oh, my dear," she responds, "you always thinking of others. Wait here, I have something for you too." She disappears into the house and returns with a jar of dulce de leche, still warm, and some fresh eggs her chickens laid today. "The girls are generous this week," she says, referring to the chickens with affection of someone who knows each one by their way of walking. You talk for a few minutes about simple things, how the plants are doing, if last week's rain was enough, how Mr. Jose at the end of the street is feeling. These are conversations that seem trivial, but weave the net of mutual care that sustains the community. Each piece of shared information is a way of being present in each other's lives, knowing when someone needs help or company. Your next stop is at the Silver family house, where a young mother lives with 3 small children. You hear children's voices before even reaching the door. Laughter, conversations, that chaotic and joyful music only children know how to make. When you knock on the door, you're greeted by Lucas, 6 years old, who shouts into the house, "Mom, it's the garden lady!" Marina appears at the door with baby in arms and hair loose escaping from the ponytail. There's a flour mark on her blouse, and that tiredness only mothers of small children know, but her eyes shine when she sees you. "So good to see you," she says, and you know it's not just courtesy. For a young mother isolated with small children, any visit is a bridge to the adult world. You offer fresh vegetables and a jar of sauce, explaining you made too much, and it would be waste to leave just for yourself. Marina accepts with genuine gratitude. You know that with 3 small children, there's little time to cultivate a garden, and fresh vegetables are always welcome. "The children will be happy with these tomatoes," she says. "They've been eating tomatoes like they were fruit." In exchange, Marina insists you take some of the sweet bread she made yesterday. "I made them thinking of you all," she admits. "I know you like cinnamon." It's a small detail, but shows how even in busy days she finds time to think of others. You accept the still soft breads, feeling cinnamon and sugar perfume Marina sprinkled on top. The children gather around you, curious about what's in the basket. You let them see the vegetables, explaining how they grow, where you planted each one. Sophia, 4 years old, is fascinated with a bright red pepper. "It looks like a jewel," she says, and you can't think of a better description. You offer for her to take it home, and she holds the pepper with care of someone who really received a jewel. Your last stop is at Mr. Manuel's house, a 70-year-old widower who lives alone since his wife died 2 years ago. He's sitting on the porch, as he always is in late afternoon, observing street movement with patience of someone who has time and likes using it, watching life pass by. "Good afternoon, Mr. Manuel," you say, climbing the 3 porch steps. "I brought some things from the garden." He rises slowly, but with dignity, and receives what you offer with respectful formality. Mr. Manuel is from a generation that understands courtesy gestures, that values the ritual of well-made visits. "Thank you very much, my dear," he responds. "You're very kind to this old man. But you know it's not kindness, it's necessity. Mr. Manuel has stories that can't be lost, wisdom that only comes with decades of lived life, perspective that only elders can offer. Visiting him isn't a favor, it's investment in your own wisdom. He insists you sit for a while and you talk about the season, about how plants are behaving, about changes he's observed over the years. In my time," he begins, "and you know a valuable story will come." He tells about more rigorous winters, longer summers, about how people dealt with seasons before there were so many modern conveniences. "The earth has memory," he says, looking at fields extending beyond the house. "It remembers each planting, each care, each neglect too. That's why your garden is getting so good. It's learning to trust you. It's a way of seeing gardening you'd never considered, but makes complete sense coming from someone who observed Earth for so many decades. When you say goodbye, Mr. Manuel places hand on your shoulder. "You take good care of us all," he says. "That's not forgotten." You descend porch steps knowing you received much more than you gave. You received perspective, wisdom, satisfaction of knowing you're not just cultivating plants, but cultivating relationships. On the way back home, you reflect on how these simple exchanges create a network of interdependence much stronger than any formal help system. Nobody organized this, nobody ordered it, nobody controlled it. It simply happened because people living close to each other understood that caring for each other is caring for yourself. Your basket returned full, but with different things from what you took. You have dulce de leche, fresh eggs, sweet breads perfumed with cinnamon, and more importantly, that you have stories, conversation, certainty that you're part of something bigger than yourself. You understood once again that true wealth isn't counted in money, but in the number of people who care when you arrive and miss you when you leave. When the sun begins to lean on the horizon, you return home with satisfaction of a day well lived. Golden afternoon light enters through windows, creating geometric patterns on wooden floor and warming rooms with that soft luminosity that only exists at this specific time of day. It's the hour when you like to prepare dinner, when the entire house seems to sigh and prepare for rest that will come. You light the fire in the wood stove again, but now with even calmer movements, without morning's rush. The wood is well dried and catches fire easily, creating that welcoming atmosphere only wood-fire heat can provide. Fire dances behind the oven door glass, creating shadows that move on walls as if the house itself were breathing. For dinner, you use some vegetables you harvested in the morning and tomato sauce left from what you made to preserve. You cut onions that make your eyes water, but release that sweet aroma when they begin browning in the pan. You add fresh tomatoes, herbs that still perfume your hands, a thread of olive oil your neighbor makes from olives on her property. While food cooks slowly, you sit in the rocking chair by the kitchen window. It's a chair that belonged to your grandmother, then your mother, and now you. An inheritance worth more for all the nights it sheltered than for any material value it might have. You rock gently, listening to the rhythmic creaking of wood, a sound that has always calmed you since childhood. Through the window you observe how the world prepares for night. Sky colors change gradually, from light blue to shades of pink, orange, gold, in a spectacle that happens every day but never stops seeming unique. You see birds returning to their nests, hear the last songs of day, transforming into first sounds of night. Food is ready when perfume takes over the entire kitchen. You serve a simple plate, but made with ingredients you know the origin of, spices you cultivated with your own hands, salt that tastes of care and time. You eat slowly, savoring each forkful, mentally thanking for each flavor, each nutrient that will nourish your body during the night. After dinner, you wash dishes in the basin of warm water, a ritual you've always found comforting. Your hands move automatically, soap, scrub, rinse, while your mind quiets after the active day. Hot water relaxes your muscles, and gentle perfume of coconut soap you make yourself mixes with steam rising from the basin. When you finish cleaning the kitchen, you prepare the house for night. You check if fire is lowering adequately, if windows are closed but not completely, just enough to keep warmth inside without preventing air circulation. You turn off lights one by one, leaving only the small lamp in the living room, which will create soft light for when you return. You go out to the yard to check animals one last time. Goats have already retreated to shelter, grouped together to warm each other during the night. You check if they have enough water, if the gate is well closed, if everything is secure. There's something deeply satisfying about knowing everyone is protected and comfortable. The sky is already dark when you return inside the house. You pick up the book you're reading, a simple story but well told, that transports you to other places without taking away the peace you cultivated during the day. You settle in the living room armchair, with a blanket your mother made on your knees, and read a few pages in the soft lamplight. There's something magical about reading at night, when the outside world quiets and imagination can fly freely. Words on the page take on their own life, creating images in your mind, taking you on adventures that don't tire the body, only exercise the soul. You read slowly, without rush to finish, savoring sentences like you savored dinner. When eyes begin to feel heavy, you mark the page and close the book. It's time to prepare for sleep. You go to the bathroom and brush teeth with circular, patient movements, using paste you make with garden herbs and baking soda. You wash face with cold water, feeling cleanliness and freshness that prepare skin for rest. In the bedroom, you open the window slightly so night air can enter. You like sleeping with a little fresh wind, even on coldest nights. You change clothes slowly, hanging day clothes on the wooden hanger your father made when you were a child. You put on the cotton nightgown that's soft against skin and carries perfume of herbs you keep in the closet. Before lying down, you stand for a moment at the window, looking at the night sky. Stars are bright today without clouds to hide them. You recognize some constellations your grandfather taught you when you were small. The Southern Cross, the Three Marys, other formations that served as calendar and compass for those who knew how to read them. There's something deeply tranquilizing about seeing the same stars that generations before you observed, knowing they'll continue shining long after you're no longer here to see them. It's a perspective that relativizes day's worries, that puts your life in the larger context of the universe, that reminds you're part of something much bigger and more lasting than your individual anxieties. You lie in bed, you know every inch of where the mattress is softer, where the headboard wood creaks when you move, where moonlight enters when it's full. You pull covers up to your neck and feel your own body heat accumulating under fabric. There's a moment of silent gratitude for the ending day, for completed tasks, for people you met, for small pleasures you lived. You close your eyes and hear night sounds, crickets singing, wind in trees, some animal moving in the distance. These are sounds that tranquilize you, that speak of a world continuing to function while you rest, that will take care of itself until you wake again. Sleep comes slowly, like a gentle tide rising gradually. You don't fight it or force it. You just allow it to arrive naturally, trusting your body knows when it's time to rest. Your last consciousness is of covers warmth, herb perfume on the pillow, certainty that tomorrow will be another day to live with the same attention and care you dedicated to today. The next morning, you're awakened by the sound of young voices in the yard. Through the window, you see Sophia, Marina's daughter, playing near the garden with two other neighborhood children. They're not making a mess or destroying. They're observing, delicately touching plants, whispering among themselves as if discovering important secrets. You dress quickly and go out to greet them. "Good morning, girls," you say with a soft voice not to frighten them. "Want to see how plants are growing?" Their eyes light up and you find yourself transformed into a teacher of a class you didn't plan, but know is one of the most important you can give. You kneel beside them at bed height and show how carrot seeds you planted last week began sprouting. "Look here," you whisper, pointing to small green leaves barely emerging from earth. It's like magic, but it's even better. It's life growing. Children lean in to see better, and you notice how their eyes are attentive, absorbing every detail. Sophia takes your hand delicately. "Can I touch?" she asks. You guide her small hand to a basil leaf. "Rub very gently between your fingers," you guide. When she does, perfume spreads in the air and she smiles with surprise. "It smells like my mom's sauce," she exclaims, making the connection between living plant and food she eats at home. You show them how to identify when a tomato is ripe. "See the color," you explain, holding a still green tomato and another already red. "And feel the firmness." You let each one hold and compare, teaching them to use not just eyes but all senses to understand plants. The tomato tells when it's ready. We just need to know how to listen. Anna, 5 years old, wants to know where seeds come from. You show a very ripe tomato and cut it carefully, revealing bright seeds inside. Each of these seeds can become a whole plant, you explain. It's like each tomato carried an entire family inside. You see amazement on their faces when they understand plants don't appear by magic, but follow a cycle that repeats infinitely. Julia, the youngest at only 3, is fascinated with earthworms that appear when you stir the soil. Instead of teaching her to be disgusted, you explain how important they are. Earthworms are Earth's gardeners, you say. They eat old leaves and make poop that becomes food for plants. Julia laughs at the word poop, but you notice she understood. Earthworms aren't gross, they're helpers. You teach the girls to water plants, showing how to make water reach roots without wasting. Too much water can drown plants, you explain, and too little can leave them thirsty. Like everything in life, the secret is balance. They take turns holding the watering can, concentrated on doing it right, proud to be helping. When one of the children asks why you don't use poison to kill pests, you show how you prefer natural methods. "See these aphids," you say, pointing to small green insects on a rose bush. "Instead of killing them with poison, I brought these ladybugs." You show some ladybugs you released in the garden. They eat aphids, and this way everyone's happy. Plants stay healthy and little bugs find food. Children are enchanted to discover gardening can be like a puzzle where each piece has its place. "It's like a big family," explains Sophia, and you notice she understood perfectly. Plants take care of each other, little bugs help plants, and we take care of everyone. You show them the compost pile, explaining how dry leaves and food scraps transform into rich earth. "Here nothing is lost," you say, stirring material with a fork so they can see different layers. What looks like trash becomes treasure. They observe, fascinated, how dry leaves are decomposing, how earthworms work creating tunnels, how what was waste transforms into food. Anna wants to know how long it takes for a seed to become a big plant. You explain each plant has its own time, just like each child grows at their own pace. "Basil grows fast like you say. But this pear tree here took years to get big and bear fruit. Each thing has its right time." You teach the girls to observe signs plants give when they need something. "When leaves turn yellow like this, it might be they need more water or less sun," you explain, showing a plant going through difficulties. "It's like when you're not feeling well, the body gives signs, and we need to pay attention." Sophia asks if she can plant something at home. You go to the shed and return with small pots and some easy-to-grow flower seeds. "These are sunflower seeds," you say, putting some in her small hand. "They like sun and grow well in pots. When you plant them, remember to talk to them. Plants like knowing someone cares." You teach each one to plant their seeds, showing the right depth, how to cover with earth, how to water without soaking. "Now you're gardeners too," you say. "Take good care of your plants and they'll take good care of you." You see in their eyes the shine of those who just received an important responsibility. When mothers come to get the children, they run excitedly to tell what they learned. "Mom, look, I planted a sunflower," shouts Sophia. "And I learned earthworms make poop for plants," adds Anna, making everyone laugh. You observe how knowledge you shared is already spreading, being processed and retransmitted through each child's unique filters. Marina thanks you for time dedicated to the girls. "They came home yesterday talking only about plants," she says. "Sophia wants to turn the entire yard into a garden." You smile, knowing you planted more than seeds. You planted curiosity, respect for nature, understanding that they're part of a larger system where each element has importance. When children leave, each carrying their small pot with planted seed, you stay watching them move away. It wasn't just sunflower seeds you gave them. They were seeds of consciousness, connection with earth, understanding that caring is a form of loving. And you know these seeds, cultivated with attention, can grow and spread in ways you can't even imagine. After the children leave, you remain in the garden observing your plants with more attentive look that the morning with them awakened. There's a silent language plants speak, subtle signs only perceived when time and attention are dedicated to learning to read them. You develop this ability over years, not through books or courses, but through patient observation and trial and error that teaches more than any theory. You kneel beside tomato plants and examine leaves carefully. Some have small yellowish spots on edges, a sign they might be receiving too much water, or soil is retaining excess moisture. It's not cause for panic, but a gentle warning to adjust care. You decide to decrease watering frequency and observe how they respond in coming days. Basil leaves have vibrant dark green color and glossy shine, sign they're happy and well-nourished. When you pass hand over them, they release that intense perfume indicating healthy plants. But you notice some are beginning to show small flower buds. It's time to prune them so they concentrate energy on leaves, which are what you use in cooking. You cut flower buds delicately, mentally explaining to plants why you're doing this. Some might think it's silly to talk to plants, but you learn that every form of attention and care makes a difference. Plants respond to energy they're treated with, to affection or hurry, to conscious presence or mechanical work. In lettuce bed, you notice some are growing slower than others, even planted on the same day. You examine soil around each one and discover one area is more compacted, making water and air penetration difficult. It's a lesson about how small condition differences can drastically affect development. You carefully loosen earth around suffering lettuce, creating small channels for better water flow. It's delicate work, requiring not hurting superficial roots while improving conditions for them. Your hands know exact pressure, firm enough to be effective, gentle enough not to cause damage. Squash is spreading vigorously, but you notice some larger leaves are yellowing. This is normal. Plant is directing energy to fruit growth and sacrificing older leaves. You remove yellowed leaves, not for aesthetics, but to avoid them becoming focus of fungi or pests when they start rotting. There are small footprints in moist earth near beds, probably from a cat that passed during dawn. You don't mind. Cats help control rats and other small animals that could damage plants. It's part of natural balance you learn to respect and work with, instead of fighting against it. You observe an ant carrying a leaf piece much larger than herself. There's a line of ants working, each carrying their part of something collectively decided as important. You watch them for a few minutes, admiring organization and dedication, how each knows exactly what to do without supervision or instruction. In garden's sunniest corner, you planted sunflower seeds a few weeks ago. They're already about 20 centimeters tall, their wide leaves turned towards sun like small green plates capturing light. You can almost see heliotropism happening, how they follow sun's movement during the day, maximizing energy capture. You notice plants near fence are growing slightly inclined, extending toward where there's more light. It's fascinating to observe how they're capable of making decisions about growth, adapting to conditions they find, always seeking to optimize survival and reproduction chances. There's a small bird nest in guava tree at garden's back. You can hear chicks asking for food when parents arrive, and observe how they make several trips per hour, tireless in feeding offspring task. It's another example of how life organizes naturally when it finds adequate conditions to prosper. You check compost and notice temperature in center is higher. Sign decomposition is happening actively. Smell is earthy and rich, without acidity or unpleasant odors that would indicate imbalance. You carefully stir material with fork, allowing air circulation and different layers to mix. In medicinal herb garden, you maintain in separate beds. You harvest some boldo leaves at ideal point. They have that characteristic bitterness, indicating concentration of active principles. You spread them on a sieve to dry in shade, where they'll transform into tea that helps digestion when needed. Rosemary is flowering, its small blue flowers attracting bees working with total concentration. You stay watching a specific bee for several minutes, admiring efficiency with which it visits each flower, how its little legs load with pollen, how it seems to know exactly what it's looking for and where to find it. You notice lemon balm is spreading beyond limits you planned for it. It's a vigorous plant needing control, or it will occupy space of others less aggressive. You cut some roots that spread too much, replanting them in pots to give as gifts or have reserve seedlings. There's a small spider web between two lemon tree branches, dew pearls caught on threads like microscopic diamonds. You admire geometric perfection of construction, natural engineering allowing something so delicate to be so effective. Spider is motionless in center, waiting, exercising patience fundamental for its survival. When you finish morning inspection, you have clear understanding of each plant's state, each bed, entire small ecosystem you created. It's not just a garden you maintain, it's a place where you practice observation art, where you continuously learn about patience, about working with natural forces instead of against them, about finding balance between caring and letting nature follow its course. You wash hands at yard faucet, feeling fresh water clean earth from fingers. But earth under nails you leave. It's a sign your hands know real work, that they got dirty creating life, that they connected with source of all abundance. In early afternoon, you sit in pear tree shade with a basket of seeds you collected over months. They're small treasures you keep carefully, seeds from tomatoes that gave especially tasty fruits, flowers that beautifully colored the garden, herbs that proved resistant and productive. Each seed carries not just plant potential, but memory of their mother plants and promise of continuity. You spread seeds on clean cloth, separating them by type and checking their conservation state. Some are dry and ready to be stored until next planting season. Others still need a few days of sun drying. There's something meditative about this work. Meticulous care with small details, attention dedicated to objects so small, carrying such great possibilities. While working with seeds, you reflect on all other things you cultivate beyond visible plants in garden. You cultivate patience through necessary waiting for things to grow in their own time. You cultivate humility by accepting not everything you plant will germinate, that some harvests fail, that nature has its own rules you can learn but not control. You cultivate observation through daily attention you dedicate to each garden detail. You learn to see subtle changes, perceive when something is out of place, anticipate needs before they become urgent problems. This ability extended to other life areas. You notice when a neighbor needs company, when an animal isn't behaving normally, when seasons are changing before signs become obvious. You cultivate generosity through habit of always planting more than you need, knowing abundance is made to be shared. But you learned there's difference between generosity and waste, between giving because you have excess and giving because you understand giving is a form of receiving. That energy circulates and always returns transformed into other abundance forms. Persistence is another quality you cultivate daily. There are days when garden work seems unproductive, when plants don't respond as expected, when weather doesn't cooperate. But you learned giving up is never option when dealing with things that really matter. You return next day, adjust approach, try another strategy, continue caring even when results aren't immediate. You cultivate gratitude through constant awareness that each harvested fruit, each blooming flower, each sprouting seedling is a gift you didn't deserve or conquer alone. They're results of complex cooperation between your work, earth fertility, sun generosity, rain regularity, ancestral wisdom contained in each seed. Simplicity is cultivated through preference for natural methods, solutions respecting natural cycles, basic tools doing necessary work without unnecessary complication. You learned often simplest solution is most effective, that technology doesn't always improve things, that there's wisdom in methods tested by generations. You cultivate connection through awareness you're part of complex life network. Each garden plant connects you with soil, water, air, insects, birds, sun. Each planted seed is declaration of faith in future, bridge between present and what will come, way of actively participating in life continuity. Respect for natural cycles is cultivated through observation of seasons, acceptance there's time to plant and time to harvest, time for growth and time for rest. You learn to work with these rhythms instead of against them, plan activities respecting what each season offers and demands. You cultivate responsibility through awareness. Your actions have consequences extending beyond your yard. How you treat earth affects water quality going to groundwater. Methods you use influence health of insects and birds visiting your garden. Plants you choose to cultivate contribute to local biodiversity. Creativity is cultivated through constant need to find solutions for unique problems. How to protect plants from wind without blocking light. how to use every inch of available space, how to make pest become ally instead of enemy. Each garden challenge becomes opportunity to think differently. You cultivate acceptance through daily coexistence with things you can't control: weather, pests, plant diseases, abundance and scarcity cycles. You learn to do your part best way possible, then let nature do hers, without excessive anxiety about results not entirely depending on you. Sense of purpose is cultivated through understanding your work feeds not just your body, but also your soul and other people's. Each meal prepared with garden ingredients is meal with history, carrying care, connecting who eats with earth and who planted. When you finish organizing seeds in small envelopes labeled with name and date, you have in hands much more than material for future plantings. You have in hands result of all these qualities you cultivate daily: physical evidence of living, way valuing care, patience, connection with earth and people around. You store envelopes in wooden box where you keep seeds, knowing each represents future possibilities. But you also know qualities you cultivate in yourself are most important seeds, those that will bear fruit not just next season, but in all interactions you'll have, all choices you'll make, all life still to be lived. You rise from seed work and walk to property edge, where there's low wooden fence marking boundary between your yard and open field, extending to distant hills. This is where you come when you need to think about time. Not clock time, but deep time marking true transformations, changes happening too slowly to be perceived day by day, but accumulating in complete metamorphoses. You rest arms on fence and observe how field extends before you, in gentle undulations disappearing on horizon. Grass is golden this time of year, swaying lightly with breeze, creating waves running across surface as if earth were a golden, quiet sea. There's something hypnotic about this movement. Visual music calming mind and inviting contemplation. You close eyes and feel all seasons you've lived pass through you like memory layers. There's winter in your bones, memory of cold nights when wood stove fire was more than comfort, it was necessity. Mornings when you woke and saw frost covering everything with delicate white lace, transforming familiar world into something magical and strange. Those were times of gathering, house concentration, preparing and eating preserves you'd stored so carefully. But winter also taught you about resistance, about finding beauty even on most austere days, about how gathering can be fertile, how seeds need cold to germinate better when spring comes. You learned there's deep wisdom in periods of apparent inactivity, that not everything still is dead, that much of what seems end is just preparation for new beginning. Spring lives in you like contained explosion of possibilities. You carry in body memory emotion of seeing first light green shoots breaking dark earth. Joy of noticing trees began showing buds on branch tips, almost imperceptible perfume announcing life is awakening after winter sleep. It was planting time, renewed hope, projects seeming possible again. Spring taught you about renewal, about how it's possible to restart as many times as necessary, about how each end contains potential for new beginning. It also taught about timing, about waiting right moment to plant, about not rushing when earth wasn't ready yet, about trusting right time would come naturally. Summer lives in you as plenitude memory. You remember heat warming to bones, long days seeming endless, garden abundance producing more than you could eat or preserve. Those were days of intense but gratifying work, generous harvests, sharing plenty with neighbors and friends. Sweat flowing while working under sun wasn't discomfort. It was life-proof, well-spent energy, active participation in creation's great symphony. Summer taught you about abundance, about how to receive generosity when it arrives, about working hard when conditions are favorable to store energy for harder times. It also taught about pleasure of well-done work, about how satisfying it can be to tire body in activities feeding soul. Autumn lives in you as lesson about preparation and gratitude. You carry memory of golden afternoons when you prepared preserves, fresh mornings announcing season change, trees dressing in yellow and red as if going to farewell parties. It was time to harvest last fruits, prepare house for winter, take stock of what year had offered. Autumn taught you about letting go, about how there's beauty in releasing what can no longer be maintained, about how careful preparation can transform scarcity into abundance. It taught about cycles, about how each end is also beginning, about accepting changes with grace instead of resisting with bitterness. Now, standing at this fence, observing field extending before you, you understand you carry all these seasons within yourself. They're not just memories, they're internal structures organizing your way of living, giving you emotional and spiritual calendar going far beyond what clocks and conventional calendars mark. You live according to these internal rhythms. There are times when you feel more inward-focused, more contemplative, more interested in conserving energy and reflecting on what you learned. There are others when you feel expansive, full of energy for new projects, ready to plant literal and metaphorical seeds. There are harvest seasons, when everything seems to work and life offers more than you can process. And there are preparation and organization periods, when there's no visible growth but much internal work happening. You learn to respect these personal rhythms, same way you respect natural seasons. You don't force productivity when in gathering period. You don't waste energy when in abundance time. You don't resist change and transition periods, even when uncomfortable. There's calendar inside you not corresponding exactly to external calendar. Sometimes you feel spring's arrival weeks before it manifests in nature. Sometimes your internal autumn arrives when it's still summer in world. You learn to trust this bodily wisdom, honor these personal rhythms even when they don't coincide with social expectations about productivity and behavior. Breeze changes direction and brings wildflower perfume growing in field. It's sweet, complex perfume, mixture of different species blooming together, creating natural bouquet no perfumer could replicate. You breathe deeply, allowing this perfume to fill lungs and awaken memories of all summers you've lived, all springs you've witnessed. You open eyes and observe how afternoon light is changing, gaining that golden tone announcing day's end. There's gentle melancholy in this light, beauty coming exactly from being transitory. You understand this is one of season's great lessons. Beauty and impermanence aren't opposites, but different aspects of same deep truth about how life works. When you finally move away from fence and return home, you carry feeling of being synchronized with something much larger than your individual life. You're part of cycles governing planet, participate in rhythms, organizing life long before you were born, and will continue long after you leave. There's deep comfort in this perception. You're not alone. You're inserted in larger order, sustaining and giving meaning to each small gesture of your day. At afternoon's end, you sit again on house porch, but now with teacup made from your garden herbs. Blend of chamomile, lemon balm, and touch of honey Mrs. Rosa's bees produced. Steam rising from cup carries gentle perfume of plants you cultivated, dried and prepared with your own hands. It's more than tea. It's liquid connection with months of care, way of drinking your own patience transformed into comfort. You observe shadows lengthening across yard, creating geometric patterns slowly changing as sun leans on horizon. There's something deeply tranquilizing about this regularity. Sun always rising and setting, shadows always moving in same direction, days succeeding with reliable rhythm even when everything else seems uncertain. Your mind wanders through changes you've witnessed over years living in this house. You saw small trees grow until tall enough to give shade. You saw plants seeming eternal taken by pests or diseases, and others you planted on impulse establish and prosper in ways you never imagined. You saw neighbors come and go, children grow, couples form and separate, families expand and reorganize. But you notice through all these changes, there are things remaining. The rhythm of seasons remains, reliable as beating heart. Earth's generosity when treated with care remains. Deep satisfaction coming from work well done, food cultivated with own hands. Honest tiredness at day's end remains. The network of mutual care connecting you to neighbors also remains. People might change, some move away, and others arrive to take their place, but care structure remains. Someone always needs help. Someone always has something to share. Someone is always willing to extend hand when necessary. It's human chain constantly renewing itself, but never breaking. You take another sip of tea and feel warmth descending throat, warming you from inside. There's ancestral memory in this gesture. Generations of people who also sat at day's end to drink teas made from plants they cultivated, to reflect on day past and prepare for what would come. You're part of lineage of people who understood living well is art practiced daily, in small gestures and constant attention. Wisdom you accumulated through years of observation and practice remains. Knowledge not written in books but engraved in your hand's memory. In intuition developed through loving repetition. In capacity to read subtle signs and respond adequately. It's wisdom type, not aging, deepening with time, becoming more valuable as exercised. Capacity to find beauty in simple things also remains. First red tomato of season, herb perfume when you pass hand over them, rain sound on roof during autumn afternoon, golden light color when sun is setting. These small joys don't depend on special circumstances or extraordinary achievements. They're available every day for those who know how to look for them. You observe butterfly landing on basil flower closest to porch. It stays there for a few minutes, wings slowly opening and closing while feeding on nectar. Its moment of simple perfection, butterfly doing exactly what it was born to do, flower offering exactly what it has to give, you observing with attention transforming common event into contemplation moment. Faith in future, you demonstrate each time you plant seed remains. It's not blind or naive faith, but faith informed by experience of seeing seeds transform into plants, plants into fruits, fruits into new seeds. It's faith based on understanding life has natural tendency to continue, to find ways to prosper even in difficult conditions, to adapt and persist in surprising ways. Satisfaction coming from living according to values making sense to you also remains. Values perhaps not most valued by outside world. Simplicity instead of ostentation, quality instead of quantity, care instead of rush, sustainability instead of immediate profit. But which at each day's end allow you to lie down with tranquil conscience of someone who lived with integrity. Sun is already low on horizon when you see Mrs. Antonia coming out to water her plants. It's ritual she fulfills religiously every afternoon with dedication of someone understanding caring is form of prayer. You wave to her and she returns greeting with smile. It's simple moment, but affirming community continuity, persistence of bonds connecting people who chose to live close to each other. Understanding you're part of something larger than your individual life remains, part of nature cycles, of history of land you inhabit, of lineage of people who learned to live well in tune with natural environment. This understanding brings responsibility, but also brings comfort. You're not alone, you're inserted in larger order, sustaining and orienting you. You finish tea when first stars begin appearing in darkening sky. It's time to enter, light house lights, prepare dinner with ingredients you harvested during day. But before getting up, you stay a few more minutes observing how night arrives slowly, transforming familiar world into something mysterious and new. There's something deeply comforting about knowing tomorrow's sun will rise again, that there will be new days to live, with same attention and care you dedicated to today. That plants will continue growing, seasons will continue alternating, life will continue offering opportunities for those who know how to perceive and take them. When you finally get up from chair and enter house, you carry certainty you chose well. You chose way of living honoring both tradition and innovation, valuing both stability and change, finding meaning both in grand gestures and small daily care. And this certainty, more than any material possession, is what allows you to sleep peacefully and wake grateful to live another day. Next morning, you wake earlier than usual, moved by serene energy not coming from rush, but from calm anticipation of someone knowing they'll have full day ahead. There's something different in air. Perhaps subtle season change you feel before being visible, or perhaps just accumulation of well-lived days creating own momentum, gentle force propelling each new dawn. You dress slowly, choosing comfortable clothes allowing you to work in earth without constraint. There's blouse your mother sewed years ago, faded but still resistant, keeping in fibers memory of countless honest work days. You wear it like putting on armor made of love and history, protection coming not from hardness, but from softness accumulated over time. In kitchen, you prepare breakfast with ritual gestures already become form of morning meditation. Baking bread exhales that perfume transforming house into home. Brewing coffee sings its familiar music. Fruits you cut release aromas awakening all senses today being born. Each action is deliberate, conscious, invested with attention transforming routine tasks into presence moments. Today you decided to completely reorganize one of garden beds, not because something was wrong, but because you felt it was time to renew, create new possibilities, give space for different plants to experiment with that piece of earth. Its decision coming from intuition, developed through years observing how plants respond to different conditions, how earth behaves, how life reorganizes when given opportunity. You begin carefully removing plants that were in bed, some to replant in other locations, others for compost where they'll transform into food for future plant generations. There's something deeply satisfying about consciously participating in these transformation cycles, facilitating life continuity through well-thought decisions. Your hands work earth with familiarity of someone knowing its texture, temperature, needs. You add organic compost you prepared during months, mix everything carefully, create small mounds and valleys facilitating drainage. It's work requiring physical effort, but feeding something deep in you, satisfaction of creating conditions for life to prosper. While working, you reflect on how this activity teaches completely different relationship with time. Here, rush isn't just unnecessary, it's counterproductive. Plants grow at their own pace, earth transforms gradually, results appear weeks or months after actions causing them. It's patient school, education for living in deep time instead of surface time. You plant new seedlings with care of someone knowing they're participating in process transcending them. Each seedling carries potential, not just to grow and produce, but to attract different insects, modify soil chemistry, create new interaction possibilities with neighboring plants. You're planting not just vegetables, but entire relationship systems. A neighbor passes on road and waves to you. It's Maria das Dores, going to work in city. There's interesting contrast between you two at this moment. She inserted in clock time, productivity measured in hours, commitments that can't be postponed. You inserted in earth time, productivity measured in seasons, processes happening when they should happen. There's no judgment in this observation, just awareness. Different forms of organizing life exist, different possible rhythms for human existence. You chose rhythm, allowing attention to details, valuing quality over quantity, privileging depth over extension. It's choice having costs, but also offering specific rewards. You stop to drink water and observe work progress. Bed is beginning to gain new form, new organization. In a few weeks, when seedlings establish themselves, it will be hard to imagine it was ever different. Earth has this impressive capacity to absorb changes and make them seem natural, organically integrate novelties with what already existed. There's an important lesson in this observation. Well-made changes don't violate what exists, but integrate harmoniously with it. You learn to change your garden respecting its natural characteristics, working with its tendencies instead of against them, allowing each transformation to happen as natural evolution instead of forced revolution. Sun is higher when you finish replanting. Your hands are dirty with rich earth. Your back feels well-spent effort of physical work. But there's deep satisfaction pulsing in you. Satisfaction of someone who actively participated in creation, who collaborated with life forces instead of just consuming them. You water newly planted bed with warm water left resting in sun. Seedlings seem to sigh when water touches their roots, and you can almost feel their relief establishing in new home. There's something touching about witnessing these first adaptation moments, knowing you created conditions for new lives to prosper. While observing water being absorbed by earth, you reflect on how each garden day is lesson about time. Not abstract clock time, but lived time. Time having texture and meaning. Time measured not in passing minutes, but in transformations happening. Here you learn time isn't something saved or lost, but something inhabited, fully lived in each present moment. There's fundamental difference between spending time and investing time. You learn to invest time in careful observation, well-thought actions, gradually deepening relationships, skills developing through patient practice. Each minute invested in garden returns, multiplied in knowledge, food, satisfaction, connection with something larger than yourself. You wash tools carefully, feeling cold water clean earth from metal blades. They're simple tools, hoe, rake, trowel, but became extensions of your hands through repeated use. You dry them well before storing, not just to avoid rust, but as gesture of respect for objects facilitating your work, allowing your intentions to transform into effective actions. Late morning arrives with that golden light announcing day's best is yet to come. You sit in pear tree shade and eat apple you picked from tree you planted years ago. Fruit carrying in its flavor. All patience you invested, all water you offered, all care you dedicated. It's more than apple. It's materialization of well-used time. Proof small and constant actions can produce lasting and nutritious results. There are children playing in street. You hear their joyful voices mixed with bird sounds, creating life symphony cradling this morning of completed work. You smile, remembering when you were also child, when time seemed infinite and each day was complete adventure. Now you rediscovered that childhood quality, capacity to be completely present in each moment, find fascination in simple things, live each experience with total intensity. At end of this special afternoon, you find yourself again on porch, but now with different perspective. There's deep serenity coming from someone who completed not just day's tasks, but something greater. Way of living making sense, creating meaning, leaving positive marks on world, even after you're no longer here to maintain them. You look at garden you created and maintained for so many years and see much more than growing plants. You see living legacy, not just plants continuing to produce, but knowledge you transmitted to neighborhood children, seeds you shared now growing in other yards, traditions of mutual care you helped keep alive in this small community. There's something deeply comforting about knowing your influence will spread in ways you might never come to know completely. Child you taught to plant seeds will grow, and perhaps teach own children. Neighbor you helped in difficult times might help others when opportunity arises. Preserve recipes you shared might be passed forward, carrying your care through future generations. You walk to compost, you maintain at yards back, and observe how organic remains slowly transform into rich, dark earth. It's perfect metaphor for how life works. Nothing really dies, just transforms. Remains of plants you cultivated will become food for new plants. Wisdom you accumulated will become teaching for other people. Love you invested in each small gesture will multiply in unpredictable ways. You think about seeds you collected and carefully organized. Each carries not just mother plant's genetic potential, but also all attention you dedicated to its cultivation. When other people plant these seeds, they'll be planting also a bit of your care, your patience, your understanding about what it means to live in harmony with natural rhythms. There's letter you began writing for whoever comes after you in this house. It's not formal testament, but kind of loving guide about how to care for garden, about what each plant needs, about cycles you learn to observe and respect. It's way of ensuring accumulated knowledge won't be lost, that next person to inhabit this space can continue from where you stopped, instead of starting from zero. In this letter, you write about importance of talking to plants, observing signs they give, working with seasons instead of against them. You explain where to find best seeds, how to prepare compost, which neighbors are most generous with trades and advice. They're practical information, but loaded with philosophy you developed over years. Understanding gardening is much more than producing food. It's way of consciously participating in life continuity. You return to porch and sit in rocking chair that belonged to your grandmother. You imagine other people sitting here in future, observing same field extending to horizon, feeling same breeze caressing your face now. There's something comforting about this continuity, certainty that simple gestures you value, observing sunset, hearing birds, feeling wind, will continue being possible and meaningful for those coming after. Night flower perfume begins spreading through air. Jasmine and 4 o'clock you planted near house, precisely to appreciate their fragrance on summer afternoons. These plants will continue perfuming nights even when you're not here to smell them. It's form of gift you leave for future, moments of sensory beauty happening regardless of specific someone being there to witness. You think about Mrs. Antonia, already over 80, and how she embodies way of aging you admire, staying active, curious, generous, without losing capacity to be surprised by small joys. She's example of how it's possible to cross decades keeping alive essence of what makes us human. Capacity to care, connect, find meaning in daily gestures. You hope to age like this, not just accumulating years, but refining capacity to live well, extract maximum meaning from simple experiences, keep a live flame of curiosity and generosity. You want to be remembered not for things you accumulated, but for care you offered. teachings you shared, gentle way you treated both people and plants and animals around you. First stars appear in gradually darkening sky. They're same stars illuminating your grandparents' dreams, guiding travelers through centuries, continuing to shine long after all current humanity transforms into something new. There's almost vertiginous perspective in this perception, but also deep comfort. You're part of something so large and lasting your small gestures gain importance, transcending your individual life. You get up to enter house and prepare day's last meal. In kitchen, using ingredients you cultivated and preserved, you prepare simple but nutritious dinner. Each flavor carries history. Tomatoes sprouting from seed you saved from previous harvest, herbs you picked still moist with dew, olive oil your neighbor produced from olives growing on her property. While eating, you feel gratitude for each forkful, each nutrient that will nourish your body during night. It's not just food, it's materialization of months of care, applied knowledge, cooperation with natural forces, allowing plants to transform into nourishment. It's daily miracle you never tired of appreciating. After dinner, you go out one last time to check if everything is in order in yard. Goats are gathered and calm, plants adequately watered, tools clean and stored. There's deep satisfaction knowing you fulfilled your responsibilities well, left everything prepared for another night of rest and regeneration. Before retiring, you stay few minutes observing garden illuminated by soft light from almost full moon. Plants seem different in silver light, more mysterious, more magical, more clearly connected to cosmic rhythms governing all life on Earth. You feel deep connection with this moment, not just with plants and Earth, but with all people who throughout history stopped to contemplate gardens under moonlight. You enter house knowing you lived another day, fully and consciously. It wasn't extraordinary day by conventional standards. There were no dramatic achievements or memorable events. But it was day when each gesture had meaning, each action contributed to something larger. Each moment was lived with attention, transforming common experiences into small miracles. As you prepare for sleep, you carry certainty you chose well. You chose way of living, honoring both past and future, finding meaning in small gestures. Understanding true wealth lies in quality of attention we dedicate to each moment. And this certainty, more valuable than any material treasure, is what allows you to sleep in peace, knowing tomorrow will be another opportunity to live with same wisdom and care. In night's quietude, while world rests and regenerates, you understand you participated in something much larger than your individual life. You participated in great chain of care keeping life flourishing, silent transmission of wisdom, passing from generation to generation, continuous creation of beauty and meaning through apparently small but profoundly important gestures. You sleep knowing even when you're no longer here, something of what you built will remain. It will remain in earth fertilized by your care, in people who learned watching your gestures, in traditions of generosity you helped keep alive, in understanding that living well is art practiced daily, with patience, with attention, with love for simple things sustaining all existence.